to my mind, there's a disconnect between the worlds of education and business. And I think they should synergize, because really the throughput from the education world ends up sitting in the workplace. But the workplace of tomorrow hasn't even been dreamt up yet. It's changing at such a pace. But it's nearly as though humanity will be pitched against AI and that technological advancement, but which emphasizes for me the importance of our emotionality and our emotional intelligence and our potential for empathy, etc., etc. So, coming from that background of education and psychology myself, your tool, the emotional intelligence mapping tool, really grabbed my attention. A tool that's so simple and yet so complex, that can be used with children, excellent, and that can actually be brought into the business world, used with senior executives, used with teams. Talk to us a little about that. I'm really interested in that.
The map was originally designed with cognitive behavioral therapists in mind. This is my background in CBT. It was about how can we start having some conversation around language and the language that we use. And very often we verbalize. So we have a thought, first of all. You have an actuating thought or a stimulus that will happen. An action occurs, we have the thought, and then we verbalize how we feel about it. And the verbalization is not just about the map with this intensity model, but it's about everything we do. We ask questions. Can you forgive someone? And it's either a yes or a no. So forgiveness shouldn't be a conversation based on a finite language, a 0-1. It's not binary. And when you consider that we have 86 billion neurons in our brain and all the complications of the hormones, the chemicals that are released that affect our happiness and well-being, it only makes sense that we should try and simplify the use of our language. And so the map was a way of look at a word and you could see how intensity level was on it. So if I had a look at, for example, this area here is the anger line. So the anger line looks at, and on the very outskirts, it has rage. And it's like, well, if you think about any emotion that you've had that has an element of anger in it, when was you last angry? What made you so upset? So if you was to think about something from your client base or from your students at the university, when were they last angry? But I can even take this to an extreme level. If I was to slap someone in the face, I imagine that they would be having aggressive tendencies, maybe going into rage themselves because of the injustice that had taken place. But at the very beginning here, we have the word confused. And this is the foundation of the intensity of the anger line. If we can eradicate the building block of confusion, we can minimize the intensity of anger. So let's try that with the extreme case, what I just mentioned, the slapping of the face. How can we take away confusion? Well, taking away confusion could be asking a question. Why did you do that? And if I had explained the reason why I slapped you in the face was because there was a scorpion. I'm saying that out of context. I'm here in Saudi Arabia. A scorpion was there. I slapped the face because it was about to sting you. If it had have done, you could possibly have died. Do you believe that the intensity of anger would be minimized?
Yeah, I see.
And quite clearly it would. So in fact, there is any situation where you're feeling anger, you jump to the building block of confusion and you attempt to eradicate confusion.
So really, this is a very good tool in the workplace for conflict management and for unraveling and why something has happened. And very often conflict arises because of lack of communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more.
Have you ever used the mapping online? I imagine if you're introducing it to a school or a company, it would not be as effective online as it would be you face to face.
I can't I totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part where it has to go online. It has to be digitized. Let me explain why. As a person, I can speak to you, and maybe you could, sell it to your audience, etc., and it gets diluted. So my one-to-one sessions, with my team over here, I've just had another member just come up the stairs now. So another one we can come up now. We can have that. They get value. Now the map, yes, it will be diluted, but I can hit the masses by digitizing it.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's a professor from MIT, and she is a nuclear science professor. Mm-hmm. And then she's gone to her department, app development, and they're going to start developing this app, and they're going to digitize the map. And this is where I think it could be quite powerful. So imagine now your students, and if you were the head of the rector or the dean of the university, right, imagine that the map in this format is now on a mobile phone. And before you go into any of your lectures, you are going to, with a sliding scale, have the intensity of the angle line, the relevance line, the happiness line. So you'll rate your intensity.
Sure.
Now then, imagine this. I want you to imagine that you're actually the dean now, and I'll be one of your lecturers. So I'm one of your lecturers, and then after 4 weeks, you're going to come and knock on my door, Mr. Garner, I'd like to have a conversation with you. Do you realize that for the last 4 weeks, 78% of your students are either distracted, bored, or frustrated?
Very good. Yeah.
What do you think we can do about it?
Yeah.
So now, instead of you as, if you think about the team at the university where they have, how many observations do they do? Sure. How many buzz observations do they do? How often do we have a look at their curriculum, etc.? But this is very different. We're now looking at the feelings and the emotions of our students. Mm-hmm. But the great thing is this data would not only just go to you as the dean or the headmaster, it would also go to the student. It would also go to the teacher. It would also go to the parent. So Mr. Garner, being as a diligent teacher as I am, I would like to think so anyway, after the second week, I'm thinking, wow. So third week, my students are coming back to me. I'm going to say, hey guys, I've noticed that some of this content is not being delivered as well as it could be. What can we do to make this more engaging for you? This is about, and clearly I would change my pattern to match the students' needs. So I think this not only goes to develop, it takes the workload off from the heads of department and the headmasters and the deans and the rectors, clearly. We're also focusing on how we can support the emotional literacy of the students as well.
Yeah.
But where I see this being really big would be in the United States. Very recently, I read a report. They were talking about arming teachers. They want to give teachers the ability to have guns, and it was in response to a mass shooting at a school.
Sure. Yeah.
So when I read this, I was like, wow. But at the same time, what you realize, the person who did the mass shooting, and as sad as it is, he did not just jump to rage. It would have been building up over a period of time. It doesn't happen instantaneously. There's no switch that causes him to go and shoot people. He would have been, and let's have a look, if we looked at the map carefully, he would have felt distracted in class. He then would have got to boredom and then frustration. His frustration would have led him to negative behavior, which transfers onto the anger line, but he could have also been lost. And his loss would have led to neglect and then rejection and then demoralized and before he gets to depressed. And then he would have had these actions. It takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. I believe that if they had the app and if every kid had this app, if every student had it, and we had the ability to read these reports, we could proactively say, there's a direction. We are failing our kids and we'll do it early. Why are we having a look at performance reviews of teachers? When are they done? At the end of the year. Let's have a look.
When the damage is
too late
done.
now. Stay with your student.
Absolutely.
Let's do it early. So we can start tracking how people have been feeling. It could be that I get anxiety every time I see Teresa. And
Yes.
Teresa puts me on Zoom, and I'm like, oh, my knees are going, I'm getting nervous, and
Right. Yeah.
and then we start practicing and say, well, what is it? Is it the relationship that we have with her? Is it the fact that you have to go on camera? And then you can start managing those emotions more effectively. You get to almost be, instead of emotions driving us, we get to understand our emotions, recognize the intensity, make slight adjustments to make sure that we've got an accurate result of how we're feeling. And then it's about looking at what emotions should I employ to reach my objective.